Hey everyone, this is Theo. Today I'm going to give you the full review of the video recording capabilities of the Xiaomi Mi Note 10. I bought this phone today and I'm out here at Chinatown, Singapore to do some filming to test the camera. So right now I'm recording using the open camera app, and the front facing camera can only record at 3000 pixels wide, not 4K. If you use the stock camera, it's going to be 1080p, so you have to use third-party camera apps in order to get the larger resolution. This is the setup I'm using today. That's the phone that is clamped using the Manfrotto twist clamp. There is a tripod plate here so that I can mount it onto the tripod. I will be using the phone like this, handheld most of the time. If I'm tired, I will just put it onto the tripod to get more stabilization. I'm going to switch between using the stock camera and open camera and manual camera apps just to let you see the difference. The most important thing to note about this phone is it can only shoot in 30 FPS or 60 FPS. You cannot shoot 25 or 50, and that presents a big problem for me because the lights here in Singapore and in most of the countries in Southeast Asia, they have a frequency of 25 or multiples of 25. So you see that shot behind me? The lights from the shop is flickering very badly because the frequency doesn't match the video, and there is no way to change the frequency of the video. So right now I'm filming at 30 frames per second. Even if you set it to 25 frames per second, the phone will still shoot at 30 frames per second when you view it on the computer. So this is actually enough for me to sell the phone straight away. So wherever you go, there will be lights. Lights from shops, street lights, traffic lights, even lights from your TV, your tablets. If you live in Southeast Asia, do not get a 30 FPS camera or phone. The electronic stabilization is in effect right now, so I'm trying to walk as slowly as possible to reduce any handshake. This is how effective the EIS is. I'm not sure if it's actually that effective though, but much better than not having any stabilization of any sort. Right now I have my camera on the tripod. All this is handheld, and this is recording at 4K resolution, 30 frames per second. So this is with electronic stabilization, and this is the main camera. When you are using third-party apps, you only have access to the main camera. Notice the lights, they are flickering again. Now the 4K resolution of this camera is actually quite good. It's able to capture details really nicely. And I am recording this footage at 100 megabits per second. So with third-party apps, at least you have the ability to choose the bit rate. Let me try and follow the cat and track it. Pay attention to the background. So when I am filming with smartphones, I'm usually looking for the jello effect when panning around with the phone, and whether or not there is any focus breathing when the camera is trying to focus on certain subjects. The most important thing when it comes to shooting with smartphone is the video. It must be smooth, it should not be jerky. If not, the person who is watching the video, he or she is going to get nauseous. The app is currently recording with auto exposure turned on, which means when I am in a dark environment, it's going to increase the exposure to expose me properly. So right now I'm under the shade, so it's quite dark, and the camera is doing a good job exposing me. Now I have strong light source coming from the back, and it's doing a good job exposing me as well as the main subject here as well. So when I have auto exposure on, what I look out for is how smooth the transition is when it comes to the app, the smartphone adjusting the exposure. Is the exposure change going to be very abrupt? Is my face going to turn bright and then dark and then slowly be exposed properly? So all that is something I look out for when checking for auto exposure. So I'm happy to say that auto exposure, it works really well. And the camera, the front camera, it's quite wide, so it's actually quite suitable for vlogging. The microphone, I believe the quality is quite good as well, although if you have a separate mic and external mic, the audio quality of course is going to be much better. But the front camera overall, it's quite good. I like how wide it is. Back to the main camera. So I'm going to move as slowly as possible to minimize shake. Right now I'm rotating around the subject. Let me go close, zoom in. Now one thing to notice is there is actually depth of field. So notice how the background it's blur, but the foreground it's sharp. I can also focus on the background, and now the foreground it's blur. So the sensor is, if I remember correctly, it's bigger compared to typical smartphone cameras, just slightly bigger. And when I stand further away, everything will be sharp. So this depth of field, it's only more obvious when you are shooting at subjects really close up. For stationary shots like this where the subject is not moving, for example now I'm not moving, it's really easy to record with smartphones. But when it comes to filming action, that's where things become more challenging. I've just turned off the video stabilization, so this is how the footage looks like. So there's probably going to be more shake with the front camera as well as with the main camera. Let me switch over. So this is the main camera without video stabilization. All the lights are flickering because of the frequency, the difference in frequency. Right now I'm recording using the stock camera with image stabilization turned on, and it's only recording at 1080p, so when blown up to 4K this may look a bit pixelation, and there's no way to control the bit rate, so the compression effects, they may be quite obvious. Anyway, I'm not sure if you can see the difference between the stabilization here versus that with open camera. Now this phone has 5 cameras, and to access all the 5 cameras to make videos, you can only use the stock camera app. This is the main camera with image stabilization turned on. Now there are 2 types of stabilization when you are using the stock camera. There is image stabilization and super stabilization. The latter is the electronic stabilization. So let me switch over to the super stabilization. With super stabilization, you are going to get a more zoomed in view because the video is cropped. I'm not sure if the stabilization is actually more effective compared to just image stabilization alone. Notice as I was walking, there were some changes to the exposure. Some parts of the videos, they became brighter and darker. So to prevent that, I would actually have to lock the exposure, but there's no way for me to do so with the stock camera app because everything is automatic. These are some Chinese New Year goodies, food. Super stabilization can only be used with the main camera. So if you are recording with other cameras and you want to use super stabilization, it would change to the main camera straight away. And now let's film with the macro camera. The macro lens can actually focus really close to the subject, so you have to move in quite close. And with macro lens, if you are not using a tripod, the footage is going to be shaky due to the nature of the lens. So even if you keep your hands really steady, you are still going to get the footage is still going to be shaky. This is the extra wide angle lens. This is with image stabilization turned on in the settings. If I turn on EIS right now, it's going to switch to the main camera, so you're not going to get this super wide view anymore. I'm not sure if you can consider this footage to be smooth. Does the footage look stabilized to you? Now the extra wide angle lens, it's very useful, it's very versatile. You can film really wide scenes very easily. So right now I have the extra wide angle lens pointed at me. I cannot see the front of the phone because the screen is on the other side, but it doesn't really matter because the camera is so wide. I'm pretty sure I'm in the frame. Extra wide angle lens is the best lens to use when it comes to shooting interiors and tight spaces. If you are shooting group photos where the group is very large, use the extra wide. Looks like it's going to rain pretty soon. So the ultra wide is great if you want to make your subjects look more dynamic, if you want the diagonal lines. Alright, right now there is a slight breeze. I'm not sure if the microphone of the camera is doing a good job filtering out the wind noise. I'm up here to compare the different cameras on the phone, so I'm going to zoom in later on. But right now, pay attention to how smooth or not smooth the footage is when I am just panning around with my camera. I've just turned off the image stabilization from the stock camera, and I'm going to pan the camera again. And do you see any difference between how smooth this video is versus the part that was just recorded a few seconds ago? The phone is on the tripod now, so when it comes to shooting stationary subjects, no problem at all. And with this ultra wide angle lens, you have to be careful when recording or filming buildings because of the vertical lines. Right now I am looking at the buildings from the top, so the lines, they sort of converge down. If I point the camera to the top, you can see the lines, they converge at the top. And now let's test the other cameras. So this is the ultra wide. This is the main camera. This is the 2x zoom. Basically, I'm trying to focus on that word there on the building. And this is the 5x zoom. There should be a difference in the image quality, in the video quality. This is 5x zoom of the street below. I'm looking at the screen and the image is a bit pixelated, so it's not that sharp. This is 2x zoom. Now the image, it looks sharper on the phone, but I will have to look at this later on at home to see if it's really sharp. This is the main camera. So the main camera, it definitely looks sharper. And once again, notice the depth of field. So this part here, the pillar, it's blur, and the background, it's sharp. And this is the macro lens, handheld macro. Notice the people on the streets, they are blurred out. Let me try and focus as close as possible on the coin. So the image or the video quality, it's not that great, but for a macro lens on a smartphone camera, I think this is good enough. It's actually quite good. So is the camera on this phone good enough for making videos, for vlogging? Well, it really depends on the type of subjects, the type of videos you are making. So if you are vlogging, personally for me, I don't think the EIS and OIS is good enough. I mean, it's very good for smartphone cameras, but it's nowhere near this mirrorless camera. Anyway, the reason why I bought the smartphone camera is so that I don't have to carry this out, but it looks like I do prefer this because the quality is just way better. It's just on a different level. When it comes to shooting challenging scenes where you cannot control the conditions, where you cannot control the lighting or the movement, the subjects, then shooting with smartphones, shooting with this camera, it's going to take a bit more work to get your shot to look right. But with mirrorless cameras, these are very versatile. You can just point and shoot, and as long as you get your composition right, you're going to get a good footage. But with smartphone cameras, sometimes they do need a bit more work. Battery life for this phone is actually quite good. I've been filming with this phone for almost 3 hours and it dropped 40%, so you can probably use this to film for maybe 5 to 6 hours non-stop. And there's quick charging, so you can charge up this phone really fast. Alright, let me know in the comment section below what you think about the quality. Is this good enough for a phone that is almost US $500? Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.